Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Payrolling. This episode is an absolute banger. I talked to Marcus Sheridan, worldwide famous author of the book They Ask You Answer, and we talk about all things marketing and content distribution. Marcus has led more than 250 workshops around the globe on sales, marketing, and communication. His book, They Ask You Answer, has been rated the #1 marketing book to read by Mashable and also listed as one of the top 5 marketing books of all time. This dude is an absolute stud. I really enjoyed the conversation. He's speaking at the upcoming IPPA Summit. If you haven't got a ticket yet, please make sure you do. It's just a few weeks out as of this recording. If not, you're going to get some taste of that right here, what folks are going to get at the session. So while we wish you could be there, hopefully this will satisfy some of those needs. But without further ado, welcome to Marcus.
Welcome to Payrolling, the show where you will learn how to operate and grow your payroll business from the most dynamic minds in the business. If your company offers payroll services, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Matt Vady. Let's go.
Are you tired of dealing with payroll? Would you just like to finally get out of this industry and start focusing on what you actually do best, whether you're a CPA, healthcare broker, whatever your core discipline is? You started offering payroll services because you thought it would be a great value add. And then you quickly realized, well, this is consuming way more time for not enough money than I originally thought. Did you know that we are actively acquiring payroll books of business? We would love to work with you to identify if we can help you to partner with the right group that makes sense for an exit for you, but creates consistency in how you continue to treat your clients. If you're interested in learning more about Guru's acquisition services, simply go to guru.co/acquisitions. That's GUHROO.co/acquisitions. Marcus, you wrote the amazing book, They Ask, You Answer. You've impacted tens of thousands of people's approach to sales and marketing, which is a pretty dang cool thing to say in and of itself. But what is the one piece of advice that you are constantly giving clients or people who come to your events that they just don't follow? I mean, you've literally got to beat them over the head with it. What is that one thing that you struggle to get people to follow or agree with?
I think that one of the majors when it comes to world-class case studies online, right? We'll start there for a second. Is somebody in the organization has to own the content. Somebody's got to own it. And so what happens a lot of times is people say, "Well, Marcus, you produced your own content for those couple years, and it worked fine for you, and so I'm going to give that a try too." Well, yeah, and I was getting ready to file bankruptcy and I was going to lose my home and I didn't have a choice. You see what I'm saying? And so because of that, I did things that a lot of people, unless they're incredibly motivated, are not going to do. And the pattern we've seen of the companies that create the greatest case studies online just become that voice of trust in their space. Somebody owns written content and eventually somebody owns video. Now, if you're a one-man gang, right? If you're just a one-person company, well, then that might need to be you at first. But if you're scaling up, which ideally you are as an organization, there's somebody that owns the written word, that in-house journalist, if you will, that in-house storyteller that is meeting with your different subject matter experts and is getting that content, that expertise that's in their head and getting it up on the screen. Same thing when it comes with that videographer. Most companies don't have an in-house videographer. If you want to crush with video in 2023 beyond, get an in-house videographer. It's a game changer.
That's interesting. So you've got somebody that you suggest somebody controls written content, somebody owns video content as well. Are they one and the same as far as the content they're producing? Are they repurposing each other's? And who's the leader of those two?
Well, what's interesting, lots of times when we work with a lot of companies that at first they don't even have really a marketing department. And so we'll bring on that recent journalist graduate and we'll train that person up on all things marketing, and they're producing some of that written content. They get going, they get moving, and the business starts to really see the growth. And so now we're ready for another hire. And that person becomes the manager of what is the marketing team. The next hire is generally either a new writer slash content manager, or it's a videographer, somebody that's really strong with video skills. You can't be a really strong writer and videographer at the same time. It just doesn't really work. You're serving two masters. Can you do it okay? Yeah, but just okay. You're not going to do it in a world class level in terms of your industry. And so that's usually where I start, Matt. It's like I would start with like, what do the best do? What do we see? What are the patterns of the ones that just became the voice of their space?
Mm.
Somebody owns it, right? So I would start generally um, a perfect small marketing team is a head of marketing that is managing the lead writer, the videographer, and that head of marketing is also in charge of HubSpot or whatever the tool is that you're using to do all of your marketing automation, to measure all your stuff that is also your CRM that the sales team is using. Like in a perfect state, that is like if I had just 3 team members, those are the 3 that I'm going to have for a marketing department. It's crazy. There's companies that are massive that have a marketing department with 20 people and they don't have an in-house videographer. I just think it's nuts to me.
Yeah, especially what's your friend? We both are Alex Sheridan, right? Is that his name? Alex?
Yeah, Alex. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I've seen that you two with the same last name have become friends on LinkedIn. He's a big
Yeah.
video production guy. Highly recommended follow for those of you out there listening in, and check out Alex's stuff. He really doubles down on video, and I think it's funny because how many years in a row now is 2023 the year of video, right?
So
Like
it's so funny, right? I mean, I say it in with total like sarcasm at this point. Um, it's it's really wild though, because most companies still haven't come close to tapping into the potential. And video is not one of those things you just get overnight.
right.
It's like any other skill. You learn how to tell and show a story. You also learn how to be a better subject matter expert. You learn how to be better on camera. I mean, there's all these things that you learn, and that's why the best companies when it comes to video are the ones that are most willing to be imperfect, that know it's not going to be just right, and they're willing to embrace the messy and the clunky that comes with it, right? So you got to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. Some companies don't allow that. They think their brand is so pristine or magical as freaking BMW that they're like, that just doesn't meet our standards. They never do anything great with video. And in fact, they probably, if they do video, they outsource it and they spend outrageous amounts of money that they shouldn't be spending because they can't tell stories and show stories in house.
Well, and I think there's also that fear to your point of like, we're not BMW, but we've got to have everything Uber produced, right? Like sometimes you got to get comfortable with, I always point to Gary Vee. It's hard not to. He's such a predominant figure in the marketing space and branding space of like, his stuff's never well produced, right? Like, I mean, if you feel like you've got to have everything perfectly produced, I mean, you're behind before you even start. And I love your point earlier, this term T-shaped marketer is something that's coming up all the time lately is like, look, you're good at a bunch of things, which is the top of the T, but you're really good at one or two things, which is the bottom of the T. And too often people think that they're going to hire one marketing person and they're going to be able to do all this stuff. They're going to be a graphic designer. They're going to be a content writer. They're going to manage the content. They're going to do video. They're going to do, trade shows. They're going to do everything. Well, guess what? That person does not exist. And they definitely don't exist fresh out of college. So like, you're going to have to get some additional disciplines in there. Even if you just need to supplement with contractors online, both near and abroad are great ways to fill that in. So,
yeah, you're right, man. It's like we can do that so much. And it goes back to if you try to be a jack of all trades, you're going to be a master of none. I'm always looking for a master of one. It's the same thing with, one of the big mistakes that companies make, generally speaking, is they buy into this idea of be everywhere, which is not realistic. You're much, much better off really leaning into one platform and doing it very, very well. So if you said, we're going to become the best in the world at YouTube, and that's going to be our thing. Okay, fine. That's great. But don't try to be the best in the world at YouTube and then be the best in the world at 5 other things. It's very, very hard to do. It's like when I started They Ask You Answer with my swimming pool company back in the day, I was like, we're going to be the best in the world with written content on our website. That's what we're going to do. And so that's where we started. And about 6 or 12 months in, I started to integrate video into the mix. The video that I did was mainly just YouTube. I was just really getting good at that. I wasn't paying attention to Facebook at the time. I wasn't doing, I didn't do social media hard with my swimming pool company for quite a few years, but yet we became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world because we had a really, really clear focus. And it doesn't matter if you could get, it's like the other day I was with a group, an audience, and they said, Marcus, should we be doing Twitter? I was like, no, you shouldn't be doing Twitter. And this was a group of what they do is roof cleaning. Okay. And somebody said, yeah, but I've gotten some results with Twitter. I'm like, yeah, but if you'd spent that exact same amount of time with a better platform, more focus on it, you got more results than you got from Twitter. So Twitter's fine. And could you get leads from Twitter? Yes. But you're not going to get as many leads from Twitter, at least in that industry, than you would have if you had focused your efforts somewhere else. And so it doesn't, that's why we hear, oh, that person is getting some leads there. Yeah, but you want to go deep with that particular platform. Become great with that platform. Own it, crush it. I mean, just really, really be known as the thing there. And then once you become very known on that platform, then start to work your way out and do some of these other platforms or these other mediums.
Yeah, you nailed it. Having 50 followers each on 5 platforms is not a great marketing strategy, right? So, for you, what are the social channels that you're doubling down on and like currently, and what are you looking to next?
So it all depends on the business. And because I've got multiple businesses, I'll break down each one. So for myself, my personal brand as a speaker that is speaking to lots of companies and certainly lots of B2B organizations, I'm all in on LinkedIn. You really don't find me on, Facebook. You don't find me on Instagram. You don't find me really on Twitter. Like I use Twitter as a news feed, but I don't really post anything on Twitter. I put all my mental energy into LinkedIn. So that's that. Now, my swimming pool company, we don't use LinkedIn. Doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
My swimming pool company continues to be world class with written content on the website that's answering customers' questions. And we're very, very strong with YouTube. We do some with social media, but it's not a massive focus. It's just not a massive focus. I mean, we just do some. We just do some. I've got an offshore fishing company and brand. It's called Speechless Sport Fishing. And my entire focus there is just with video. So with Speechless Sport Fishing, we've got a YouTube channel called Saltwater Fishing University. Okay. And on that channel, it's all our marketing efforts are just put right there. Now, we do produce short video content, and that short video content gets repurposed and goes on Facebook because fishing does really well with Facebook. And we also use it on TikTok. But where the base is, we only produce the videos for YouTube. We produce long and short video. We started with long. We got good with that. Then we moved towards short. 2023 is the year of short video. It's just amazing right now. It's amazing the impact that can have. We take that short video, and that short video is the easiest to repurpose, and we use it on TikTok. We use it on Facebook. For Facebook, it's Facebook Reels. For TikTok, it's TikTok. For YouTube, it's YouTube Shorts, right? That's how it works. Instagram, it's Reels. So that's where we go, and that's how we're building our community there. We're building it really, really fast. But I'm not doing any written content. I'm not doing They Ask You Answer over there in terms of written content because I don't have time for it. I'm going to focus on one thing and do it really, really well. I'm doing They Ask You Answer video content, but not written content.
I love that. So you mentioned They Ask You Answer several times. Obviously, I mentioned it open up. First of all, amazing book, man. I mean, it was the type of book I just barreled through this thing and, sat down, had pen in hand, was taking notes and just went through the whole thing in about a weekend. So kudos to you for writing such an easy read and something that, wasn't redundant, didn't feel like we were, oftentimes I feel like I'm just hearing the same point over and over
Yeah.
again throughout a book. And I often used to joke, I'm like, look, man, Marcus's book, look at the title. You got the whole concept right there. They ask, you answer. That's it. That's all you need to know, right? Your customers are asking questions. Go online and answer them. And that's the book. I don't need to read this thing. And then I finally sat down and read it after holding on to it for a little while. And it's an awesome book, man. So kudos to that. But it's been about 6 years since you wrote it, as far as I can tell. 2017, I found that you wrote it. What would you change if you were rewriting this book in 2023?
Well, what makes me so happy is it was written from a principle-based perspective, right? Centered around how can you become the most trusted voice in your space? And that's never going to change. If I said to you, is trust going to be fundamental to your business in 20 years? It doesn't matter what type of business you are. You're going to say, yeah, of course it is. And so we're in a battle for trust. The question is, how do we generate it? If I said to anybody, is addressing your customers' questions, worries, fears, issues, concerns, is that going to be important to how much they trust you and their willingness to buy from you in 20 years? You'd say, absolutely. And so the question becomes, how do we answer those things, address those things? Where do we do that? That's what evolves. So I'm really, really pleased to say that overall, the book has been, from a principle-based perspective, very evergreen. Another edition came out at the end of 2019, and I can see another edition coming out in 2025, 2024, maybe, probably 2025, but that's going to have a lot about AI in it, okay? And we've also seen a ton of success. They ask you answer for recruiting. So it turns out that recruits have tons of questions that are just like buyers. They want to know the best companies to work for. They want to learn about salaries. They want to compare different companies in different industries, things like that. Most companies don't really teach recruits, potential team members, on their website like you would teach a prospect for your business. And so really, in a perfect state, you've got two learning centers on your website, one for potential buyers, one for potential team members that are addressing all their questions, worries, fears, issues, concerns. And if you can become the hub where someone learns about getting a job in your industry, you're never going to search for another employee again. They're going to be coming to you. So that's a big untapped that wasn't in the initial They Ask You Answer books. It's going to be in the next edition, definitely. As you know, I'm really, really big into AI. And so I'm talking about it. And, what's interesting about AI is a lot of people think it's going to solve companies' problems. But in many ways, it's not so much, because you still have to have guts. And you have to pay attention to what people want to know, and you got to be willing to talk about it. You can have ChatGPT write an article on your website right now for you in 2 seconds about how much does it cost for your product, your service. But most companies still ain't going to do it because they're afraid to talk about cost and service on their cost of their service or product on their website, right? Still, to this day, over 90% of B2B service-based businesses don't address how much does it cost on their website, which is utterly ridiculous if you think about the psychology of the buyer. So even though we have all these tools now that are willing to talk about these things and do them, and I'm not saying that ChatGPT is a standalone product. It's not. It needs guidance. It needs additional content that you put into it. But the point is, they're still not going to do it because they're not obsessed with the buyer. They're trying to protect the old way, the way they've always been doing it, which is ridiculous. And that's how you get left behind.
Let me ask you a question. Are you the go-to person in your market for payroll and HR? Are you the first face and name somebody thinks of when they think about who am I going to refer this person that needs help with their payroll and HR support? If not, you might want to look into our executive LinkedIn management service through Underdog Digital. Underdog Digital is a sponsor of this show, and they've seen results such as, I'm looking at one profile right here where over the course of 6 months, they increased views by over 200%, more than 600,000 views on these posts in less than 6 months. Another one, plus 1,000% increase in 8 new conversations in the first 30 days. This is a tremendous service to help you to become the go-to person for payroll and HR outsourcing in your market. They create content for you, engage with other people in your space, send connection requests, and do outreach to generate conversations that do nothing more than create valuable relationships with your target audience. If you're interested in learning more about Underdog Digital's executive LinkedIn management service, go to underdogdigital.co. That's underdogdigital.co. And I know everybody listening right now, that's really resonating. So we're in the payroll space. Name of the podcast is Payroll, and we're going to talk about the IPPA Summit here in just a moment. But the two biggest players in our space will never, ever have the pricing on their website.
Oh, they will.
They have an outbound sales model where
they will,
just
though, Matt.
hammer the pavement. All right, I've been waiting 20 years.
They will, because here's what happens. Eventually, and I've seen this. Let me give you an example. 6-7 years ago, I started teaching the manufacturers in the boating space. You're going to need to talk about pricing on your website. They're like, well, we don't set the end price. Yeah, but you have MSRP, and you're going to be forced to do it, or you're going to be left behind. And I was with 20 of the top boating manufacturers in the world, giving the owners a talk. And I had multiple say, you're wrong. And over 50% of the people in that room today have pricing on their website. 50%, build and price your boat. And trust me, the chips are falling and the others are going to have it too. So what happens in every industry is chip falls, and then the marketplace starts to say, wait. You mean there are people that are willing to talk about this? And so if they're not, and they are, well, then I'm going to start to call them. And so it's just a matter of losing market share. It's kind of like, there's this famous quote by Henry Ford, which I think is a stupid quote, yet it gets quoted all the time, and it's dumb. It says, with the Model T, you can have every color you want as long as it's black. Well, that's the quote that almost drove Ford out of business initially. After they gained all the market share and started dominating, Henry didn't really want to change things up. He's like, hey, had the fat and happy syndrome. We've been doing it this way. I've been doing it this way for a long time. I'm not going to change it. You can have any color you want as long as it's black, right? Ha, ha, ha. Real funny. Okay, so you almost lose the business because of it. You gave the opportunity for everybody else. The two behemoths eventually are going to talk about cost and price. Now, they might not list their exact price, but they're going to talk a lot about it, and they're going to teach a lot about it eventually. Or they too will be left behind. I will guarantee you that it's going to happen, and I'll give them less than 7 years, probably less than 5 years before it happens.
Well, I don't know if you're right or wrong, but I can tell you that there's going to be immense pressure one way or the other, because there has been sort of a third or fourth place person who's coming up. They've got pricing. They're more inbound. They're more focused. You got a lot of folks like us, independent regional providers, that are putting their pricing on their site, applying that pressure, and really just, you nailed it in the book, in the conversation here today, of like creating that trust. Like, we've got nothing to hide. We also don't discount, which is the biggest thing. Like, hey, why don't they put their pricing on their website? Because their current clients are going to see that they've taken 10 price increases over the last 10 years, and they're now paying 150% of book rates. So that's going to be the bigger problem, is they're not going to put the pricing on the website because they're too worried about the fact that as soon as they have to go make cost adjustments for all those million existing clients, they're going to drop significant share price. And so that's a concern. I don't want to talk about that.
Let me tell you something really controversial.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and this will just make people say, I don't know about this guy. If I was in the payroll space and I had those two behemoths, I would create two different pieces of content, both addressing how much their product and service costs. In other words, me as their competitor. Now, I don't have to say exactly how much they cost, because this is the thing that people miss. The perfect title of the book would have been, They Ask, You Address It Really, Really Well. But you see, that's not catchy. It's They Ask, You Answer. We get caught up in the answer. You can't always give an exact answer, but you can address the thing well. And so, for example, if you have this behemoth that people are constantly searching about, well, how much does their stuff cost? I guarantee you, if I went to Google right now without even know that company's name, and I searched that company's name, and then I saw what came next, price would be one of the first ones that shows up in Google Suggest. I guarantee it. And because of that, I could draft off of that momentum. I could openly talk about that and teach people the factors that we have learned, because if you've been in the game, you have a sense for what they cost. So you could talk about what their pricing model looks like without giving exact prices. And then now all of a sudden you're getting all that traffic to your website, and you can say, and oh, by the way, we are willing to tell you roughly what we cost. here's how much we cost, or here's a sense for what you would spend with us. Here's some different examples of what you might spend. And because of that, you've just gotten all the traffic from the behemoths. And that's how digital Davids beat Goliath every day online.
Well, it's interesting. I Googled that while you were talking just to see what popped up. And the first article was a Forbes article addressing their pricing, not their own articles, and then a couple of theirs. And then, there's certainly some land grab there, because I'm sure if I took the time to put in keywords everywhere and see how many searches there were per month for this, it's probably substantial. As a matter of fact, one of the competitor I mentioned that does have their pricing was running ads against that search term that pop up first as soon as you search that. So
sure.
Very good. Couple of things you can do there, but let's talk. Let's go back to that piece about your personal brand. So you've obviously done an amazing job building a personal brand for yourself. I know a lot of people in this space trying to do similar things. So if for people that are trying to follow that course, trying to develop a great personal brand for themselves that cascades into the business, helps the business to grow, what are the suggestions you have?
I think one of the skills that a lot of people struggle with, and you can absolutely develop it, is the art of storytelling. Now, I told the river pool story over and over thousands of times by this point. People even apologize to me sometimes on podcasts or in interviews, and they say, Marcus, I know you've answered this a million times, but would you be willing to talk about the river pool story? And it always surprises me that they're so afraid to ask that, because I love the river pool story. It is foundational to my life. I tell it well, especially from a stage, right? When I come out to the conference, I mean, it's going to be a very cool story, but a story that relates to everybody in the room, because they're going to be able to put their arms around it, and they're going to say, you know what? This isn't that complicated. This is so easy. He's not that smart. Look, if he did it, why can't we? And by the way, that is the idea. Which number 2 to building your brand. Once you become a great storyteller, you also want to learn to, somebody once told me the phrase, Matt, it's dumb not to dumb it down. And at first I was like, huh. And I was like, yeah, because too often, especially when you have this, persona that you're trying to put across online, you don't even realize it, but you're trying to sound smart. Why are we trying to sound smart? Because we're trying to prove ourselves to the audience. Like, hey, I belong in this room or on the stage or whatever it might be. That manifests itself to your audience without you even realizing it. And it turns them off. Comes across as insincere. And so if you let go of trying to sound smart, then suddenly you become so relatable and understood. You've achieved this thing called communion, right? And so that's why somebody reads, they ask you to answer, you're like, dude, I just blew through the book. It was like, I felt like I was just talking with you. It's like, it's just so easy to read. There's nothing about it that's complex. I don't use fancy words, fancy phrases, anything like that. It's just easy to understand. It's a book. That is great. When I get off a stage and somebody says to me, this is so obvious, that's a win. But a lot of people would be hurt if they were told, well, this is so obvious. I feel awesome about that, because it means in their eyes, it's attainable for them too.
I love that. Well, as a dumb guy, that's actually the easiest part for me, is just to dumb it. I've got nowhere else to go but dumb. But the other piece is, you mentioned it, and this is really, really hard, and people underestimate it, is saying the same thing, being comfortable saying the same thing over and over and over, and realizing that 99% of those people haven't heard that message, or, the old mustard seed parable, it just hasn't hit and grown yet. And so, making sure that we're comfortable telling. I remember hearing Tim Ferriss years ago tell the same story on 3 different outlets. And I was like, man, he just tells the same stories over and over again. And then I was like, oh yeah, he just tells the same stories over and over again. That's not a bad thing. You've got your great stories that resonate, that provide a ton of value and get the point across. Tell the same stories over and over and over again, and don't be uncomfortable with it. It's wildly uncomfortable at first. We used to create new, presentations, new things all the time, where it was like, whoa, let's just double down on the stuff that actually hits every time. It's like, you wouldn't pull all the jokes out of your routine that were getting laughs on stage. They continue to tell the jokes, right? All right, so let's pivot real quick into the IPPA Summit coming up here next month in Las Vegas. What should the attendees expect from you on stage?
Well, they're gonna have a really really fun, educational, and takeaway driven experience. That's my promise.
Fun,
Uh,
educational, and takeaway driven. I
yeah,
love
that's
it.
right. That's right. And you're gonna find there's a lot of interactivity to it. I'm gonna have a conversation with you, which is always like, is this guy really talking with us? Yep, we're gonna have a conversation, which makes it different. It feels different. It's gonna be a different energy in the room. But you're gonna see a framework, learn a framework that you can immediately apply to your business to generate dramatically more trust, traffic, leads, and sales. I promise you that. I promise you that. And it's not going to be hard to do. It's going to be utterly simple. What's really cool is most of your peers won't do it, which puts you in that perfect place to gain significant market share. So if trust matters to you and you want to be that voice of trust while attracting dramatically more traffic, leads, and sales to your business, well, then you're going to enjoy the keynote. If that doesn't align with you, then I would suggest you just go catch up with a friend. Either way, you won.
Listen, we are in the payroll space. What could matter more than trust, right? We are literally moving money. We are paying your number one asset. We have to be trusted. And to your point, not everybody in the room is going to execute. So be prepared, be ready, have your notebooks ready, take those notes, and be ready to come back and execute on the things that you learn. But what about those folks? So we've got you on the sales and marketing track. We've got a couple different tracks at the event, but we're also going to be in sort of a general keynote time. What about the people that are not sales and marketing? Should they attend this? What will they get out of it if they do?
Well, 100%, because you're also, if you look at what trust is, it's a principle, right? And so what's great about this is we have a ton of HR teams that are using the principles that they ask you answer to dramatically improve how they hire and how they communicate. If you're a leader, you absolutely want to be in the room because this is really going to shake you up in terms of what you felt like was transparency. We're going to really show you what transparency actually looks like today, what today's buyer wants. And that's really what we're looking at too. We're looking at the psychology of us as buyers, as consumers, as decision makers, what drives us to take action. And what's so interesting about it is we don't treat our customers oftentimes, especially from a sales and marketing standpoint, as we ourselves would want to be treated. And that can happen with the customer service side, customer experience side of things, and just goes across the board. So my promise to you is regardless of what position you hold at the company, if you come to that keynote, you're going to be fed and you're going to be flooded with ideas for yourself personally and professionally. That's my promise to you. I really, really mean that. And I can't wait to, if you're listening to this, I can't wait to meet you in person, shake your hand at the event. Heck, it's Vegas, y'all. Let's have a good time.
And I can attest to that. I've got it, pages of notes from reading your book, and I know that we're going to get even more value and be poured into in person. Really looking forward to seeing you out there in a few weeks. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you and follow you online, Marcus?
Definitely LinkedIn, as we talked about earlier. That's the place. So find me there. I usually post once a day and give my best content there. So hope to see you on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me personally. Marcus at marcussheridan.com is my personal email. Marcus at marcussheridan.com if you have a question for me. Like, hey, man, I don't know about what you said on that such and such. I don't know about that, Marcus. Hey, just email me. Let's talk about it.
All right. I'd be remiss if I didn't hit visual sale as well. The visual sale, your most recent book. Um, First, I got to ask a question, right? As a guy who's read dozens and dozens of sales books, why write another sales book, Marcus? What's different about the visual sale?
Well, this is a book all about video and just integrating video into the sales process,
Love it.
right? And so a lot of sales teams don't do that. You got to be great with visually selling today, whether that's meeting with them in person or meeting with them on camera. There's a lot of nuances to what that looks like. Like I said earlier, you got to be a great visual storyteller, and all affects your sales game, your sales process. And so it was more than just a sales book, but it really was a book about becoming world class with video to increase sales. And it's done well too. It's done well. Once again, a lot of takeaways, simply written. My co-author was Tyler Lassard from Vidyard, and so yeah, check it out.
I will. Yeah, I'm sold. I'm going to crank it back before we hook up out here in a couple of weeks, but appreciate your time, man. Looking forward to seeing the keynote, looking forward to learning through the workshop. Once again, check them out at the IPPA Spring Summit happening in March 2023. We'll put links in the show notes to be able to get your registration there. I've been talking to a bunch of y'all that are on the fence. Are you going to Vegas? I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Just go buy the ticket. Let's go. Let's connect. Let's learn from each other. A rising tide lifts all boats. We're going to have Marcus there dropping some serious knowledge on us. So I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much for your time today, Marcus.
You got it, buddy.
If you enjoyed that episode, please share it with someone else you know who might enjoy it and learn from this. And also, please rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast player. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen. And also, don't hesitate to reach out with other topics you'd like to hear more about. Thanks so much.